Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chade Yamuna Tiravana Chade Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarajikacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivarajikacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai New Govardhan Dham Ki Jai All glories to the simple devotees All glories to the simple devotees All glories to the simple devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the fifth canto, the creative impetus, chapter 14, the forest of enjoyment, text 18. So it is prose, exactly like a regular verse, so that's why we don't have one on the board. So I'll just chant it, and then we could do word by word, and then I'll do translation and commentary. Kvachit grhastha-asrama karma chodhanati bharagirim aruru shamanaloka vyasana karshita mana kantaka sarkara chaitram pravishan eva siddhati. Okay, kvachit, sometimes. Grha-asrama, in householder life. Karma chodhana, of the rules of fruitive activity. Ati padim gadim, the big hill. Aruruk shamanaha, designed to ascend. Loka, material. Vyasana, to pursuits. Karshita manaha, whose mind is attracted. Kantaka sarkara chaitram, a field covered with thorns and sharp pebbles. Pravishan, entering. Eva, like. Siddhati, he laments. Translation. Purport by His Divine Grace, HG Bhakti Swami Prabhupada. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yagyas and fruitive activities, especially the vivaha yagya, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grhastha, and they are very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to materialistic activities, to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. Purport. There are many social functions for keeping a prestigious position in society. In different countries and society, there are various festivals and rituals. In India, the father is supposed to get his children married. When he does so, his responsibility to the family is complete. Arranging marriages is very difficult, especially in these days. At the present moment, no one can perform the proper ritual of sacrifice, nor can anyone afford to pay for the marriage ceremony of sons and daughters. Therefore, householders are very much distressed when they are confronted by these social duties. It is as though they were pierced by thorns and hurt by pebbles. Material attachment is so strong that despite the suffering, one cannot give it up. Prahlada Maharaj therefore recommends in the Srimad Bhagavatam 755, Hitva patam griham andakupam vanam gato yaddarim ashrayeta. The so-called comfortable family position is compared to a dark well in a field. If one falls in a dark well covered by grass, his life is lost, despite his cry for rescue. Period. Highly advanced spiritualists therefore recommend that one should not enter the grhastha-asrama. It is better to prepare oneself in the brahmacarya-asrama for austerities and remain a pure brahmacari throughout one's life, so that one will not feel the piercing thorns of material life in the grhastha-asrama. In the grhastha-asrama, one has to accept invitations from friends and relatives and perform ritualistic ceremonies. By so doing, one becomes captivated by such things, although he may not have sufficient resources to continue them. To maintain the grhastha lifestyle, one has to work very hard to acquire money. Thus one is implicated in material life, and he suffers the thorn pricks. Omagyanatividandasya gananjana shalakaya chakshu vandalitamina tasmai shri guruvedam ha mukam gridvachalam pangam langate girim yat kripa tamaham vande shri gurun diritadadam vancha kaltadvishcha kripa sunnubevacha patitanam pavadebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yagyas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grhastha, and they are very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. So Srila Prabhupada in New York City, when he first came to New York City, there was a discussion going on between him and some early followers and just some, I could say, random people that were there, or I would say random, but just some guests. And the point came up about householder life and the principle of having children. And Srila Prabhupada started to explain how the act of sex, it's not what people think it's for. In other words, everybody in the material world, more or less, more than less, is mad after that particular enjoyment because that's the highest material enjoyment. But a lot of people, they're just thinking, oh, it's just for pleasure, that's it. But the real purpose behind it is for children, for procreation. Although that's hard to imagine that would be the only purpose. But Srila Prabhupada was speaking in that way, that the grhastha-asrama. Do you think somebody could close that door, please? And come back? Sometimes they got to do something, they don't come back, but I think he'll come back, but just in case. I think you'll come back, Amoghulila Prabhu, but just in case, somebody tries to stop you, you could say, I was requested to come back. But Srila Prabhupada was just saying, for procreation, once a month, at a particular time, and once the child is conceived, or once forget about it, no more. And then again, you could, if you want to have another child, then after the child's born, after some time, then okay, again. But aside from that, just forget about it. And then this man in the audience, he said, well, what's the point of that? Why not just forget about it all the whole idea altogether? Why get entangled? And then Srila Prabhupada said, yes, very good. That's your idea is very good. Just forget about it altogether. Like we had one brahmacari here, Anantadev Prabhu, my god brother. He went to Tucson. He's been living there for the last 10 years or so. But anyways, whatever. There was some very passionate girl in her 20s. She's a little strange, but anyways, so she was here, and then we were both here, and then she asked us, "Oh, what do you think of sex? You know, what do you guys think of sex?" And then Anantadeva said, "Oh, we don't think about it." That's how it sounds. Of course, that's the idea. It's brahmacari means not to think, but it takes time to make it to that level. But so Srila Prabhupada throughout the purport, he's just encouraging, oh, just forget about it. Just forget about it. What's the big deal? Just forget about it, right? Of course, that may be more difficult than it easier said than done, but this is what Srila Prabhupada's recommending. Why? Because just for this enjoyment, just for this type of lifestyle, there's so much problems are there, so many problems. For example, Srila Prabhupada says here, there are many social functions for keeping a prestigious position in society, different countries, there's various festivals, and so on. And specifically mentioned here in India, it's very important for the father to get children married. And then his responsibilities, family responsibility is complete. Arranging marriage is very difficult, especially in these days. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, of course, I'm in the brahmacari-asrama, but, devotees talk to me about things sometimes, and sometimes devotees, it says, the arranging marriage is very difficult, especially in these days, to find somebody. Like one devotee, his parents want him to get married, but from an Indian girl, because he's Indian, and the body is Indian, but specifically the parents want the to-be wife to be a vegetarian. And not just to be a vegetarian, but to have like a lineage of their family who's vegetarians. They specifically want that. Good standard. But he's having a hard time finding that, somebody who's their parents and their parents and their parents who were vegetarian. And aside from that, finding the exact astrological calculations, because it's by astrology, right? Do our charts match? He's trying to figure that out. But that's very difficult too. For some reason, he's having a hard time. So it's especially difficult in these ages. I mean, in Vedic times, men, and there was the principle that the men were chaste, means brahmacharis, not fooling around with women. And there was also the principle that the women were also chaste. Very novel concept these days. What's chaste, right? They don't even know what that word means. Pacific Beach, right? They have no idea. Practically animal platform. But if a girl was to just spend the night in another man's home, no one would marry her. No one would marry her. So on that basis, probably a lot of people wouldn't be being married, right? Men and women. I was in Istanbul, Turkey, somewhat recently, and it was very nice, visiting the devotees there. It's a heavy Muslim population, like 99% or something like that. Anyways, we were there and we're walking around. They're showing me we're walking around the town a little bit, and there was one place. It was interesting. It said it's said to be Moses from the Bible. They said to have his cane. So everyone was taking, looking at the cane there, and they had a few. Actually, they also had part of Muhammad's beard, there. It's quite interesting. But anyways, so we were walking around, and then there was this one Muslim, what do they call, imam or something, priest. So he was there, and he was chanting the Quran in Arabic, very fast. Interesting also that this Turkish Airlines, that's the airlines that went there on it, because there's a lot of people going to Turkey and there's a lot of Muslims there. They, on that screen there, they have you could press it and then you could listen to the Quran being chanted and follow the English too. It's quite interesting. I haven't seen that on any other airlines. They have the Bible or something like that, but they have the Quran. So when I was walking with this devotee, they're singing Krishna Prabhu, main, so like the temple president there. And we're walking, and this imam was chanting, and it sounded very beautiful. So we kept on walking and walking. I said, what was he saying? Because the singer Krishna Prabhu, he understands. And then he said that, and he started to laugh. He said that he was chanting from the Quran, and in the Quran it was saying that if a man has illicit sex and a woman has illicit sex, then no one should marry them. But they should be beaten with sticks. And then it said, but they can marry each other. It's whatever. So, just a side point. But the thing is, if people were following that standard, there has to be the standard of chastity with men and with women. And that is what Srila Prabhupada came to establish. He came to establish moral principles, basic moral principles. And aside from just basic moral principles, he came to give Krishna consciousness. So it's meant to be this generation of devotees and on and on and on and on and on. They're meant to be training devotees who, of course, those who marry and have children. They're meant to be training devotees in chastity, and men and women, because this is a sign of a healthy society. This is a sign of sanity. And for those who don't marry, they should also be trained in chastity, men and women. Because again, this is like the first step in God realization. Without the basic moral codes being followed, there's no question of Krishna consciousness. There's no question of God realization. So this is what Srila Prabhupada came to give us in this very, very dark times. And then, at the present moment, no one can perform the proper ritual or sacrifice, nor can anyone afford to pay for the marriage of so many of sons and daughters. Specifically, right, in India, those who are from India, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. When a daughter is married, means when the father and mother arrange for the daughter to be married, the parents have to give a heavy dowry, right? Which means a huge sum of money, or some sum of money, to her and the husband, to the other family, because she's married now and they have to give money. On that basis, practically speaking, so many people within India were women within India were committing abortion. Because they didn't want to, we can't afford, and there's a girl, just abort. Right? Now, of course, now within India, they, as far as I understand, of course, I don't live in India and I don't follow, politics of India or news of India and anything like that. But as far as I understand, nowadays, they don't allow people to have the, sonogram. So in other words, they don't allow the parents to see whether it's a boy or a girl because it was happening so much in India, holy India. Of course, it is holy, but sometimes things, which, the abortion issue, that's a whole nother class. But Srila Prabhupada was against it. Like Indriyumna Swami, I heard him recently say, he said about the growth of the embryo. He asked some sadhu in India, apparently, that, how is their life, in that embryo or whatever? Because some people say, it's just dead matter or whatever. And it doesn't matter. And then he said, this sadhu said, well, that which is alive grows. That was his answer. It's good answer, actually. That which is alive grows, and that which isn't alive doesn't grow. But everything has just been boiled down to sense gratification and what's the easiest, cheapest, less responsible way I could have my sense gratification. But anyways, we won't get into that too much. But this is being brought up here, that people don't want to engage in all these things due to the distress of it. It's just too much trouble. Or as Prabhupada said, with the advent of, Prabhupada would call what goes on in the name of love between boys and girls these days. Although it's not, you could say, a literal definition, but he says what goes on nowadays is just prostitution. Boy and girl, it's not a literal definition, means may not be an exchange of money, but practically it's prostitution. So, but Srila Prabhupada commented on this, and he said about getting married, right? Because people think, people also think getting married is a nuisance. But about this, he said, what's the use of keeping a cow if you could get milk in the market? So what's the use of getting married if you could just have sense gratification? There's no use. So the whole marriage institution, which, although in the Srimad Bhagavatam it's saying better not do it, it is there in the varnashram, Daivi varnashram system, marriage institution, and it is important. Means for those who go into it, it's important in the sense that it's actually an ashram. Means that the grhasthas are actually grhasthas, not grihamedis. And of course, with all the ashrams, sannyasis, brahmacaris, they have to follow. So we see that the demoniac, atheistic, hedonistic so-called leaders of the modern day, they're breaking down religion. And aside from breaking down, what does it mean to break down religion? It means to break down everything religion stands for. Moral codes, everything out the window. All that matters is just eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and pay taxes, which we just discussed in previous verses. Pay taxes, and whatever else. Sense gratification. So they want to do away with religion. So Srila Prabhupada, he came to establish that. And as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we also have to follow and then establish. Means in our communities, throughout the world, throughout the United States, throughout San Diego. We have to try to give people Krishna consciousness. And that's our duty. And as we see that right now in America, there's a lot of book distribution happening. And aside from a lot of book distribution happening, there's a lot of results. Because devotees were always distributing books in America, although, there was times where there was some difficulties, this and that. But as far as I know, there was always books going out in America since Prabhupada's day. But now, they're increasing and increasing more and more in America. And here, also in San Diego. And that's a good sign. That means that devotees are becoming more enthusiastic. And aside from devotees becoming more enthusiastic, doubling their enthusiasm, tripling their enthusiasm, it means that also people are receptive to it, that they want it, that they're interested. So if we could distribute books more and more and create an atmosphere, a clean, sober, sane, spiritually enlivened atmosphere, that means that the devotees can't just distribute books or just do their services. That's not good enough, but they need to also be Krishna conscious. Then that will be very satisfying to Srila Prabhupada. And that will also be beneficial for us. All right, so just a few more things. And then we'll end. The so-called comfortable family position is compared to a dark well in a field. If one falls in a dark well covered by grass, his life is lost despite his cry for rescue. So it means that one enters household life and there's a chance of falling into Maya. Of course, there's a chance to fall into Maya even if you're not in household life, but there's a chance, right? So for the devotees who are in household ashram, they shouldn't be discouraged by hearing these things, but they should say, okay, this is a dangerous situation. I have to be very careful. And for the devotees who are planning to enter household ashram, they should also keep in mind it's a dangerous situation, and therefore they need to be very serious. And those who are not entering, they don't have to deal with the dangers of household life, but there's also dangers in brahmacari life, right? There's also dangers. It's a dangerous world. But Srila Prabhupada says it's better to prepare oneself in the brahmacari ashram and just remain a brahmacari throughout one's life. So in relation to remaining a brahmacari throughout one's life, it's possible. It can be done. But one shouldn't do it in a passionate way. And aside from not doing it in a passionate way, one should always consult one's spiritual master first, before they have a bunch of ideas, and other senior devotees, to see if they should continue or not. But the brahmacharis, or practically if you speak with any grihastha, they'll tell you, means they're grihasthas and they're not brahmacharis anymore. So they'll tell you, brahmachari days, those are my best days of my life. Because in the household ashram, one has to many times do many things that they don't want to do. Sometimes the brahmacharis think they have to do many things they don't want to do, but everything that the brahmacharis are doing, right? You're cooking for Krishna. You're worshiping the deities, Krishna. You're distributing books for Krishna. You're chanting Hare Krishna. You're taking prasadam. You're shopping for Krishna. You're cleaning for Krishna. You're doing things for Srila Prabhupada. You're doing things for the devotees. Very simple, blissful life. They think, oh, well, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. But many times, many times, practically without exception, in the household ashram, there has to be many things done that you definitely don't want to do. Means you want to do certain things, but you can't, and you have to do things you don't want to do. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, for example, you may want to go to the Rath Yatra, but you can't, because you can't get your time off of work. And maybe as a brahmachari, it'd be easier to go. Or you want to go to India, but you can't, because times are tough. You know, the gas is $6.30 now or whatever, and it's too expensive. You can't go. Maybe as a brahmachari, you could go a little easier. So it's something to consider, that you have to work very hard. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, if you could avoid it, just avoid it. And that's something that each individual will have to decide. So, all right. So if I've depressed anybody or discouraged anybody, that wasn't the point. But does anybody have any questions or comments? Tyler, you're grabbing the mic quick.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear it.
Question. I think you had three. You touched on something, Mother Parashakti in the kitchen. She mentioned something a couple weeks ago, and I think you just touched on it. She was talking about life in the different ashrams, and she was saying as a brahmachari, our pleasures are unlimited. Our ability to experience pleasures unlimited. I think you were kind of touching on that, saying that we're doing all these things for Krishna, we're doing these for Prabhupada. Is that kind of the idea? Why is that ashram specific in that she would make that statement? You know, your pleasure potency is basically unlimited. Do you know what she might mean by that? The uniqueness of brahmacari ashram being
well, yeah, like, for example, I talked to Devamrita Swami some time ago. And anyways, I won't get into the details of what we're talking about so much, but he said, just relish the nectar of the brahmacari ashram. He said it's the best ashram. And he's a sannyasi, right? But he was also a brahmachari. And he's dealt with many grihastas because he has many grihasta disciples, probably most of them are. So yeah, it's unique. I mean, even above the sannyas ashram, in many ways, it's better. Like the brahmachari ashram, for example, you don't have all the kind of strict, in many cases severe work, you know, that a grihasta must do for maintenance. Of course, you could live out on a farm, this and that, but also just dealing with others' minds, such as the wife and the kids, not just your own mind. Like sometimes our minds gives us difficulty. Maybe we've had that experience. So if you have another mind and another mind and another mind, you know, it's sometimes difficult like that. So brahmacari doesn't have to deal with that. You could say the allurement of certain sense gratification that a grihasta may be exposed to. So brahmacari doesn't have to deal with that. But the brahmachari also doesn't have to deal with the life of a sannyasi, traveling all the time. That's very difficult. I mean, people think, oh, it's so fun, and right? It's difficult to travel all the time. Sometimes they don't. I mean, sometimes you have very simple facilities, like I traveled to Las Vegas Temple and Tucson Temple, and we also took a little short detour to El Paso, Texas. But wasn't planned, but a lot of the Tucson devotees were going, so what was I going to do? Just sit there in Tucson? So a little detour to Tucson, El Paso. But, you know, some of the arrangements were nicer than the others, like in Tucson, it's a little nicer. But when I was in on the way to El Paso, we stopped off. Some devotee owned some hotels, and I just slept on the floor, you know. Of course, it was a carpet floor, but still was a floor. Didn't want to sleep on the bed. And then also in the El Paso, I also slept on the floor. So, you know, there's simple arrangements, sometimes better, sometimes worse. I mean, sometimes people think, oh, brahmacari wants to take sannyas so they could just travel around. And maybe as a sannyasi, they would give you a little better arrangements than a brahmacari, that's for sure. But in terms of, but it's difficult to travel. It's very, they say, travel that wears out the body quick. So they don't have to deal with that so much, brahmacari. And a brahmacari doesn't have to deal with, in relation to being a sannyasi, they don't have to deal with a bunch of people coming to them. Like Radhanath was here one time, and he went up to Dravida Prabhu's. And hope he doesn't mind him saying this, but somebody, I think Dravida Prabhu said, "Oh, Radhanath, everybody likes you so much." And then Maharaj said, "Yeah," he said, "everybody likes a trash can," you know, which means that people come to sannyasis and they just like unload, you know, my wife, my life, my strife, right? Just unload, you know. Brahmacharis come, householders come. Everybody, Maharaj, please hear my problems. It's like, all right, let's hear them. Try to help. That's their service, but it's difficult. It's not easy. I mean, there's been some sannyasis who it stresses you out to hear people's problems. I mean, it really affects your mind. For example, one Catholic priest, he was, you know, confession. And there was some girl or some lady in the congregation who was confessing to him all the time. He was a priest, that's his job, you know, he has to do that. And as far as I understand, that you could see them, the priest could see them, but, you know, they can't see you type of thing. So anyways, he was hearing all this, and it was like lust stuff. And the guy just like, he just couldn't control, you know, and he, you know, went with her, you know. Anyways, but this, on another note, this sannyasi, I remember sometimes sannyasis, they have a hard time because they're hearing all this all the time, like in many ways garbage, you know. And yeah, you know, sometimes history and our movement, you know, many sannyasis have less. Of course, it's been less over the last 10 years or so, because different standards or whatever, but you know, waiting list and all that. But this particular sannyasi, for many years, he just, you know, he wrote a letter and he said, I'm giving it up. I'm giving up sannyas, just like too much. Of course, there was some whatever lost problem or whatever, this and that. But one of the things he wrote was that I just can't take it. You know, people just coming to me all the time and just like, you know, keep on telling me their problems, and you know, I'm just stressed out. And I'm not having enough time for myself, pretty much. Now, of course, there are ways to manage. You know, like my spiritual master, he doesn't do anything. Like in the morning, he just chants Hare Krishna. Just like means he does do something. The most important thing, he chants Hare Krishna for hours, you know, many hours, and then he goes on with his emailing, this, that, and dealing with things. So there is ways to deal with it. But the point is that the brahmachari, they may have that a little bit, but not as much as a sannyasi. So not difficulty to travel, not difficulty of people coming to, not the allurement of getting respect and honor and dealing with all that, right? What to speak of if you accept disciples, right? So brahmacari life is very simple. Prabhupada said, oh, you get a nice little place, lay the body, right? Get a little prasad, get some service. That's it, happy. happy life. So, anyways, that's something about that. I think Vijay Prabhu has something.
Yeah, Prabhupada told the teachers of the Gurukul, teach the boys the joy of austerity.
Yes.
So to live a simple life, it's a joyful life. I remember when I joined in Miami, our bed was a bed sheet. That was our bed. But all of us, it wasn't a problem. We were happy.
Yeah.
No pillow, just a sheet. That was it. Of course, it was a wooden floor. It wasn't a cement floor. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it was nice.
You lay on a sheet, and then afterwards you wear the sheet, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the same one, but.
And then we go out and we distribute books. And we go to Mangalartik. We dance. It's a nice. We don't have much material enjoyment, but it's spiritual enjoyment. And then you're chanting and hearing the scriptures. It's actually it's a very joyful life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very joyful, and we should try to learn how to take pleasure in it. It's very important. Yeah, it's very important that brahmacharis learn how to take pleasure in their services, deity worship, book distribution, cooking. They should feel happy. They should feel enlivened. And if they're not, then they need to really, think about that. Maybe you need to get more sleep. Maybe you need to eat less halava. I don't know, whatever. Maybe you need to associate with devotees more. In other words, we need a balanced diet of these different activities. But we should feel happy. All devotees should feel happy. So I didn't give a brahmacari class because I'm in the brahmacari ashram, but this is what the verse in purport was about. So I'm just, yes, you have something else?
The answer was so robust, you actually answered the second question I had, which was the functional difference between brahmacari and sannyasi. It's such a blessing to have you here giving class and answering questions. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
I had one last question, though. It was just the purport talks about staying brahmachari for life, and then you mentioned it as well, is the idea of staying brahmachari for life. But you said it shouldn't be done in a passionate mode.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that answer a little bit, why you made that statement?
Okay. Well, it's like we have to be in the mode of goodness. That's actually how we're able to maintain, in the brahmacari ashram, be in the mode of goodness, which Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita what the mode of goodness is, right? Eating a certain way, living a certain way, dealing with people a certain way. And one of the basic underlying principles of the mode of goodness is just respect. Because we respect others, men, women, children, everyone, then in some ways you could say, they may not say, okay, I bless you, right? But actually we get their blessings, we get their good wishes, even unconsciously. They may, and that's good. We need everybody's good wishes. So to be in the mode of goodness, to be respectful to others, like there's brahmacharis who are like really offensive, to women and other householders and things like that, or people like that, and very severe cases actually. So we have to be respectful, like Prabhupada said. We should treat all the women like our mothers, right? We wouldn't be disrespectful to our mothers. So that's important. So that's what I mean by not passionate. Not like, hey, I'm a brahmachari and all the householders are definitely in Maya. And all the women are, whatever. We have to be very respectful to the householders, to the women, to everybody. So that's what I mean by not being passionate. It's one of the things. All right, Vijay, Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Balaram Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. My question is, if due to strong material attachment, I cannot give up social duties, what are my options? Go for solitary living, like in a cave?
I think you should still give it up, the social response. Well, the thing is, there'll be difficulties in giving up our attachments. Because attachments, it means that we're attached to it. It's difficult to give up. But sometimes Krishna will make arrangements to just break our attachments. And actually, that's actually all the time what happens. He's making arrangements to break our material attachments. He's trying this way, he's trying that way. There was one brahmacari who was going to join the temple, and Tirtha Maharaj was encouraging him to join, but he had a cat. And then Tirtha Maharaj said, "Oh, just join the temple." No, I have my cat. And Tirtha Maharaj said, "All right, fine." And then shortly after, the cat got really sick, just died. Anyways, then he joined the temple. Anantadev, he's still there in Tucson. So whatever, whether it's that or this or that, but there's arrangements just by the force of time, by the arrangements of Krishna, our attachments will be, there'll be arrangements to break them. But we have to be receptive to that. That's the thing. Sometimes people are so attached, people try to break their attachments and the person says no. Just like on book distribution, the people who don't take books, a lot of the times they're just they're very lost and just confused and attached and proud and everything. So the devotees are out there and they're trying to deal with them, and they're trying to break their their attachment to their false ego and the attachment they have to not taking a book. Because some people are attached, they don't want to take a book, or attachment to the money. Yeah, exactly. So, for some people, especially very materialistic people, to actually give their money to something spiritual, it's like they're not feeling spiritual, they're very materialistic, and then just to give that money, it's difficult. It's like you're, lifting a huge weight or something. So devotees are trying to encourage them, hey, give up your attachment to not giving your Lakshmi to Krishna. So Krishna's trying, devotees are trying, but we have to be receptive. And sometimes we're not receptive, and therefore we have to suffer more. We have to be burned in material existence some more, and then we become receptive. Right? Learn or burn. Now, in terms, if you can't give up your material attachment, should you go into solitary confinement or something like that? Even if you go into a cave, you'll still have those attachments. They're not going to go away just by living in a cave. The mind is very active. So the thing is, what we should try to do is, if we have strong material attachments, we should just try to give them up in the association of devotees, not going off into a cave. And then gradually, may not be immediately, but gradually we could give them up. And then at one point we'll just be completely free. And we could raise our hands and ecstasy, right? Chant Hare Krishna. Okay, well, I hope that...
Yes, Balaram Prabhu, I liked it when you said that the solution for such a problem is association with devotees. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So devotees will go to Laguna Beach soon.